My beloved child, stop for a moment. Do not scroll away from this message, because what you are about to hear carries a detail so unexpected that even the people standing closest to this situation were not prepared for it. Something happened only a short while ago in the hidden world of your soulmate's life, and it has disturbed a silence that has existed for far too long. Pause here, take one slow breath, because this is not a message about ordinary drama. This is about a moment that exposed what someone had been hiding behind pride, anger, and carefully controlled appearances. Your soulmate's son did something that nobody expected him to do. And what he destroyed was not merely an object. He shattered something symbolic, something connected to a story, something that had been protected, defended, and preserved because certain people believed that as long as it remained intact, the past could remain buried. But half an hour ago, that illusion was broken, and my beloved child, I want you to understand why this matters to you. You may think you are far away from whatever is happening inside your soulmate's family. You may think their lives have continued without you. You may have convinced yourself that the people around your soulmate have forgotten your name, but heaven sees what human eyes cannot see. There are memories that never disappeared. There are questions that never received answers. There are emotions that were hidden because speaking them aloud would have forced people to confront decisions they were not proud of, and now, one unexpected action by someone who was never supposed to become part of this revelation has brought everything closer to the surface. Your soulmate's son, he has been watching, he has been listening, he has noticed more than anyone realized. Perhaps he never understood the entire story. Perhaps nobody ever sat him down and explained what happened. Perhaps he was given a version of events that made certain people look innocent and others responsible. But children, even when they are older, often notice what adults think they are hiding. They notice the sudden silence when a certain name is mentioned. They notice the expression that crosses someone's face. They notice when a photograph is turned over. They notice when a conversation abruptly ends. They notice when one person becomes defensive over something nobody even accused them of doing. And your soulmate's son has been noticing for a long time. He may have wondered why there was a certain tension surrounding your soulmate's past. He may have heard fragments, a name here, a sentence there, an old story repeated so often that everyone assumed it was true. But something changed recently. He began questioning it, not loudly at first. He simply started observing. He started connecting details, and then, today, something happened that pushed him past observation. He acted, and the moment he acted, a secret that had been sitting quietly in the family suddenly became impossible to ignore. My child, imagine a room where something has been preserved for years, a photograph, a box, a letter, a keepsake. Something nobody touches because it carries emotional history. Everyone knows it exists. Everyone knows it matters, but nobody wants to discuss why. Now imagine someone walking into that room with no intention of protecting the old silence. Someone who has finally become tired of seeing the same object carry the weight of an unspoken story. And then imagine that object being destroyed, not accidentally, not carelessly, but in a moment of emotion that reveals just how deeply this young person has been affected by everything he has witnessed. That is what happened, and the destruction itself was only the beginning, because immediately afterward, someone asked him why, and his answer left the room silent. He did not say what they expected. He did not blame you. He did not defend the family story. He did not repeat the explanation he had heard growing up. Instead, he said something that made one person realize the past was no longer under their control. He said that he knew something was wrong. He said he had seen the way his parent changed whenever your name entered the conversation. He said he had heard enough contradictions to know that the story was incomplete. And then he asked the question nobody wanted to answer. What really happened between you two? My beloved child, do you understand the significance of that question? For years, perhaps everyone believed that your soulmate's relationship history was private, something adults could control, something they could explain selectively, something that could be packaged into a simple story. But now the next generation is asking questions. And the people who created the silence are discovering that silence does not remain obedient forever. The truth grows, it waits, it moves through generations. And eventually someone who was not even present when the original events occurred can feel the weight of what was never explained. That is what makes this moment so extraordinary. Your soulmate's son may not know every detail, but he knows enough to sense that something has been hidden, and what he destroyed half an hour ago may have been the very thing that represented that hidden story. Something connected to the person who once stood between you and your soulmate, something that had been kept as proof of an old version of events, something that, until today, nobody dared to touch. When it broke, everyone heard it, and for a few seconds, nobody spoke. The sound itself was not the shocking part. The silence afterward was, because everyone understood what that destruction meant. It meant the young man was no longer willing to protect an object simply because older people told him it mattered. He wanted answers. He wanted honesty. He wanted to know why so much emotional energy had been spent keeping one particular chapter of his parents' life hidden. And there was something else. He had discovered that you were not the person he had been led to believe you were. That realization came slowly, maybe through something he found, maybe through something someone accidentally revealed, maybe through a conversation he overheard, maybe through an old message that should never have resurfaced. But when the pieces came together, his perception changed, and today, he confronted the contradiction. He asked why your soulmate had been told one thing when another piece of evidence suggested something completely different. Nobody answered immediately. That hesitation told him more than words could have. Because when a simple question receives an uncomfortable silence, the silence becomes an answer. He looked around. He realized that the adults in the room were afraid. Not afraid of him, afraid of the truth. And then he did something nobody expected. He walked over to the old keepsake. He picked it up, he looked at it, and he said that this object had been carrying a lie for too long. Then he destroyed it. My beloved child, this is not being revealed to you so that you can celebrate someone else's pain. It is being revealed because the symbolic destruction of that object represents something much deeper. The old narrative is losing its power. the version of your story that other people controlled is breaking apart. The assumptions surrounding your soulmate are being challenged. And someone who once had no voice in the situation is now asking the questions that the adults refuse to ask. That is why the atmosphere has changed. Your soulmate may be experiencing a strange mixture of emotions right now: shock, anger, sadness, confusion, and something else that may be even more powerful: recognition. Because when your soulmate heard what their son had done, they may have immediately understood what the object represented. They may have remembered you. They may have remembered the time when everything changed. They may have remembered the conversation that caused them to step away from you. They may have remembered what they were told, and perhaps, for the first time, they wondered whether they had been manipulated. That question is dangerous to a false narrative. Because once someone starts asking, "Was I manipulated?" they begin examining everything. They look at old conversations differently. They question people's motives. They remember who was present. They remember who spoke first. They remember who insisted they should stay away from you. They remember the warnings. They remember the pressure. And suddenly, the person they thought they needed to protect themselves from may no longer look like the threat they once believed you were. This is why you must not rush. Something is unfolding. You do not need to chase it. You do not need to force contact. You do not need to send a message demanding answers. Let the people who created the confusion become responsible for explaining it. Your role is to remain grounded, because there is a temptation when the past begins moving again. The heart wants to run toward it. The mind wants to know every detail. The imagination wants to fill in every missing piece. But I am asking you to wait, not in weakness. More important than the destruction itself. After your soulmate's son destroyed the object, he did not simply walk away. He asked for something. He asked to see the original evidence, the original message, the original photograph, the original conversation. He wanted to know what happened before the family version was created. And someone immediately told him that he was not old enough to understand. That sentence made everything worse, because he looked directly at them and said something that nobody expected. He said, "Then tell me the truth." And the room went silent again. Your soulmate heard it, and that sentence struck somewhere deep. Because your soulmate has been telling themselves for a long time that certain decisions were made because circumstances were complicated. Maybe they told themselves that they did not have enough information. Maybe they believed they were doing what was expected. Maybe they believed you had already moved on. But hearing their own child demand the truth forced them to confront something. They had spent years accepting an explanation without fully verifying it, and suddenly that explanation did not feel safe anymore. My beloved child, there is a moment in every hidden story when the person who has been protecting the secret realizes that the secret no longer belongs to them. That moment has arrived. Someone else has seen it. Someone else is questioning it. Someone else is willing to speak. And the most surprising person of all has become your soulmate's son. But there is more. He did not destroy the object randomly. He destroyed it after discovering something inside it. Something that had been placed there years ago. something that changed the meaning of the entire keepsake, a folded piece of paper. A handwritten note, a date, a name, perhaps even a sentence written by someone who thought nobody would ever find it, and when your soulmate's son discovered that hidden piece, he realized that the object had not simply been preserved as a memory. It had been preserved as part of a story designed to make one person look guilty, a story designed to justify why your soulmate walked away, a story designed to prevent questions. But the hidden note contained something that did not fit. It suggested that someone knew you were innocent of what you had been accused of. It suggested that someone knew your soulmate had been given incomplete information. And it raised the most uncomfortable possibility of all. What if the separation had been intentional, not an accident, not a misunderstanding, not merely unfortunate circumstances, intentional? The possibility was so disturbing that your soulmate's son initially refused to believe it. He reread the note, then again. He looked at the date, he compared it with what he had been told, and the dates did not match the story. That was the moment his emotions changed. He stopped being curious. He became angry, not at you, at the people who had known, at the people who had remained silent, at the people who had allowed his parent to live with a false understanding of the past. And that anger is what led to the destruction. But the destruction did not destroy the truth. It exposed it. Sometimes people believe that if they destroy the evidence, the story disappears. But truth does not depend on an object surviving. Truth survives in memory. Truth survives in conscience. Truth survives in the person who saw what happened, and your soulmate's son saw it. He knows there is more. Your soulmate knows there is more, and now someone else knows that they know. The circle is closing, slowly, quietly, but unmistakably. There is one person in this family who has been especially uncomfortable since this happened. They know exactly what your soulmate's son found. They know what the hidden note means. They know why the object was preserved, and they know what your soulmate will eventually ask. That person has not spoken yet. They are watching, waiting, trying to decide whether to protect themselves or finally tell the truth. But there is something they do not realize. The truth is already moving without them. Your soulmate's son has started asking questions. Your soulmate has started remembering. The old story is beginning to collapse, and somewhere inside all of this, your name has returned to the conversation, not as a mistake, not as an old chapter, not as someone who should be forgotten. Your name is being spoken because someone has begun asking whether you were treated unfairly. And when your soulmate heard your name spoken again, something inside them shifted. They did not respond immediately. They simply became quiet, because there are some names that disappear from conversation but never disappear from the heart. Your name may have been one of them. For years, your soulmate may have told themselves that the connection was over. They may have convinced themselves that enough time had passed. But hearing their child question the story opened something they had tried to lock away, a memory, your face, your voice, the last moment between you, the unanswered question, the possibility that you never knew why they truly left, and then came the question that nobody was ready for. Your soulmate's son looked at them and asked, "Did they Ever know why you left? That question struck differently, because your soulmate knew the answer. You did not. You were never given the complete truth, and suddenly, the pain of the past became impossible to hide. Your soulmate lowered their eyes. They did not answer, and that silence told their son everything he needed to know. He understood that the story was not finished. He understood that there was another side. And then he said something that may become the sentence remembered by everyone in that family. He said, "Then maybe they deserve to know what really happened." My beloved child, that is the moment heaven wants you to notice, not the broken object, not the family tension, not even the confession that may eventually come. The most important thing is that someone has finally begun to care whether your side of the story was ever heard. For so long, you may have felt like you were standing outside a closed door. Now someone inside that room has reached for the handle. The door has not fully opened, but it has moved, and behind that door is the truth about the decision that separated you and your soulmate. The truth about who spoke first, the truth about what your soulmate was told, the truth about what was hidden, and the truth about why your soulmate never came back when part of them wanted to. But there is one thing still concealed. Your soulmate's son found something else before he destroyed that object, something he has not shown anyone yet. He kept it. He put it somewhere only he knows, and my beloved child, what he kept may be more important than what he destroyed, because written on that final piece of evidence is a name. A name your soulmate recognizes immediately, a name connected to the original separation, a name that, once spoken aloud, could force your soulmate to confront the person they trusted most. And tonight, that young man is deciding whether to reveal it. He has already reached for his phone. He has already opened the conversation. He has already typed the first few words. And the message he is preparing to send could bring the entire hidden story crashing into the light, because he is not sending it to a stranger. He is sending it directly to the one person who has spent years insisting that you were the reason everything fell apart.